Meeting, it says it's setting it up, but it also says it's live.
Says it's live.
On
We have
my
no
end
idea
over
live.
we can't tell if you can see us. Okay, cool. I can see the comments over here. So welcome. If you are watching this on the replay or if you're here with us live, we are two awesome cannabis coaches who love talking about cannabis for health. And we are here to answer a whole bunch of questions that we got sent in previously. And if you have any questions and you're watching, then feel free to just put them in the chat and we will get to them as well. How's it going, Corinne?
Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Actually like you to start out by telling us why you're so particularly amazing today.
I'm particularly amazing today because of cannabis. Isn't that so shocking? It is. The only thing that's really shocking about it is that it's so funny. I've been like texting everyone today, like, oh my God, do you know how amazing cannabis is? Like,
Have you heard?
Have you heard? Like, it made me cry today. I was like, just so moved by how incredible it is as a medicine. You heard it. You're on the phone with me. So I was just, I'm just blown away by it today in particular. And the reason is because I took a 21-day tea break while I was here in Mexico, partially because I wanted to take a long tea break, partially because I was forced to because there's no cannabis here that is legal, and it's very difficult to source anything. And plus it's illegal, so I'm traveling with my 7-year-old daughter, so there were a lot of reasons why I didn't want to do it. But I had also pinched a nerve, my disc slipped, I was having a lot of neuropathic pain, and it was excruciating, completely excruciating for 3 weeks. It's that nerve pain that like goes from your toenails into your, like the nerve of your teeth, like it's just like everywhere. It's not just like a bruise, you know? And so I was cranky, I was lacking patience with my daughter. Even though we're in this beautiful place, I was not able to enjoy it even remotely. I was just trying to kind of stay out of pain as much as possible and going in speed bumps and all those kinds of things. And so I wasn't having this adventure that I had hoped that I would have here in Mexico. And luckily, I was able to source some homegrown cannabis here yesterday and decided to end my tea break almost immediately because this has been so painful. And I was given that gift of like really being able to see again what it's like to consume cannabis for the first time when you're in a lot of pain. And like, there's nothing, I don't think, on the face of the planet as incredible for pain as cannabis. I was like, wow, I forgot how on every level it's perception change, it's mood shift, it's me remembering I have to be an active participant in my own healing and hold myself in a different way because I'm healing. And it brought on this whole new layer of consciousness and also reduced the pain. And I was like, oh, and then I remembered how beautiful life is. And I feel like it was like my first day being here in the jungle. I'm like, oh, the jungle's here. It's not just me going, ah. And for that to happen in the course of 15 minutes is just fucking unbelievable. So I just want to tell everyone about cannabis, until the day I die. Again, still, like it was a good remembering.
I'm so glad to be able to like watch you have this experience, because we've talked before on our podcast a couple of times about how you don't always like, sometimes cannabis for you, like you're not super happy with it for, political reasons or product reasons or all these things. And for you to have such like a magical experience with it again and to see you back in your full expression of yourself because of a little bit of THC, like it's glorious.
I remember when I have these moments, I'm like, it's not the plant, it's the industry, it's the idea of it. It's not wanting to be associated with the stoner stereotype. It's sometimes feeling like a stoner when I don't want to feel like a stoner. It's like there are a lot of layers as if you work with cannabis for a long period of time professionally and personally as a medicine, that it's easy to want to always jump in ahead, like in a conversation about what you do or about your cannabis use and go like, but I only use it like this and I'm not like this thing. And you get defensive of it in some ways because there's a lot tied up in it. You're like, I do this, but I don't dab and I don't use Delta 8 and I only do this thing. And then you start feeling like, no, I'm not, I promise I'm good. I'm not trying, I promise it's good, and I think that's the part that actually the mindset piece of that, which is so important when you do this as a job for many, many years. I think you need to fall in love with it again, like it's easy to fall out of love with it when weird right now. But when you really strip back to the medicine and what it does for you, not on every level, it's just amazing.
I think a tolerance break for you too, like really helps. Not because I wanted you to be in that kind of pain at all, but just because you've had such a long tolerance break and you were in such a bad state. And to have that all be not erased, but drastically reduced like this kind of brings you back to how magical this plant can be, rather than you're like, you're taking your regular low dose every day and
Yeah.
you don't realize that you're feeling so much better than you had been.
And you would be. But there's that other piece too, where it's being in a prohibited place and having that be part of why I didn't use that medicine. Because I'm sure if I were in Colorado, I wouldn't have taken the same kind of tolerance break. I would have been like, this hurts. Give me my wake and bake gummy, please. He's my boyfriend. We can't be on this long of a break. And it was forced in that way. But I do want to share too, and some of you might know this if you've read any of my stuff, but I had issues with opiates. That's how I started on my cannabis journey. That was how I started on my pain journey. I was prescribed opiates. I was overusing opiates for years. Became dependent on opiates and a whole host of other pharmaceuticals that doctors put me on. And while in Mexico this time, like that was my option. It was like, okay, I can use an NSAID, which we know that those aren't great either, and they don't really work as well. I can use an opiate, or I can buy weed from I don't know where. And you and I have nerded out about this plant for long enough to know there's scary stuff in weed. Like there can be really not good stuff in it, from fungicides and pesticides and just stuff that's like actually toxic. And I was like, okay, it was kind of like not having a choice. And there were a few times where I was like, do I go get the tramadol now? Like it's unbearable and I'm not being cool with my kid and I have to operate and function in a foreign country. So does I just go get an opiate to have relief? And that's fucked. To me, like that part of it is like also waking that part of you when you start doing this as a job where you're like, this fucked, no way, that's stupid. Like, why is this like this? So that's been an interesting part of it too.
Yeah, the opiate thing is scary, to know that you already struggled with that. And then that could have been the option out of pain here. And that what you are doing technically right now does break the law, even in a country that has like legal cannabis.
Not legal cannabis.
Coming?
No, I don't know. It's been so strange to get here. And I feel it's interesting that we're talking about this. So we did our last podcast about Delta 8, about this particular thing. It was before I was really in pain. And I was like, maybe Delta 8. And I was like, oh yeah, they legalized it down there at some point. And I realized in researching it, someone commented, they didn't legalize it, they decriminalized it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I came here and I asked someone at one of these like CBD smoke shop kind of places, and they're like, no, it's not even decriminalized. Like, no, don't, you can't have it. I mean, you can, but don't talk about having it, all these things. And he's like, it's highly illegal. So basically what happened was the Supreme Court, they voted that cannabis being illegal is unconstitutional. And that really doesn't translate to any of the the branches of government that police that.
Right. Okay. So there's still work to do there as well. Okay.
But you can walk in and get opiates on literally every corner of anything. Yeah, that's what's crazy to me, is like the pharmacies are what's crazy to me. Not even the lack of dispensaries, but the juxtaposition of those things, like that you can't have this, but you can. Yeah, I'm speechless, but not in the right way. Like, not like I'm in awe, like I'm stumbling over how angry I am about it.
Yeah. I just finished a massive project diving into some of the research on using cannabis as an exit drug for opiates. Because this subject fascinates me, I've been on opiates once, and for like a surgery that I had, and I took them for 3 days. And on the third day, I was feeling so good on them that I asked my husband at the time to like take them away, like flush them, because I am really enjoying this shit. But the research that's out there on right now, on humans, like double-blind, placebo-controlled trials about using specifically CBD as a way to help people who are addicted to opiates come off of opiates, and then incorporating THC to help with the pain so that they're not just coming off opiates, but they have a plan going forward to use something that will actually address their chronic pain. It's infuriating to me that this isn't like front page news on every newspaper all day long. Like, hey, did you know cannabis might help you get off these drugs that you've been on for so long and are really hurting you? So,
Well, and
yeah,
I knew that personally. I knew it personally. And then, like you said, there's so much evidence now, and there's so much other evidence about how amazing it is. But it's what's interesting about it is that if you and I can know all this evidence, and at least I, obviously, we just spoke about, like, have that kind of like, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to have that conversation with every single human being that walks through the door. And then sometimes I'm like, I want to stand on rooftops. Like, I want to tell everyone. I wonder why that is. I don't know.
again, I think the tolerance break was huge for you because you like lived without THC and pain relief for so long, and now you're feeling amazing.
Mhm.
Okay, so you've been doing this for 10 years. You've been working in cannabis for 10 years, and you get paid to do this. You get paid to be in Mexico in the jungle writing and talking about cannabis. Can you tell us more about that?
I don't know what else there is to say about that. Isn't that rad? That was my realization
Mic
today. I was
drop.
like, yep, that's there were some good life choices involved in this whole situation, you know? Yeah, that's the gig, right? That's the thing that was a dream 10 years ago and that has become a reality. I really wanted to help people with this plant, but I also didn't really want to do anything else with my life. This is what I wanted to dedicate my life to. And when you do that, either go broke or maybe you got like a nice like savings bond somewhere like that you can sit on or whatever, or you turn it into a business. And I wasn't like a business person, but I knew that I wanted to have freedom in my life, and I saw that that was possible in all these other industries, and I was like, well, what if you add cannabis to that? Would that work here? What if you add cannabis to that? And yeah, it's worked out really well. It's been pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Now you're living in, well, now you're staying in the jungle while I'm like freezing my butt off here in Canada. But I could also pick up my computer. I should be down there with you, CT.
You should be.
I could also pick up my computer and work from everywhere. And right now, like my kids are right here and I get to work around them. So if you are passionate about cannabis and you're watching this and you're thinking about like, hey, I would like to get paid to, write and talk about cannabis, we have an awesome free class that you can take where we dive into all the opportunities that is available for you in this space. You can head to cannabiscoachinginstitute.com slash no, just head to cannabiscoachinginstitute.com and you'll see a button for a free class and you can take it because I don't know the whole URL right now. Let's answer some of the questions that we had come in before this. Okay, so
yes, and then I'll add the thing at the end. Don't let me forget the thing that I want to say.
Okay. I kind of want you to say it now because you're yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. I just wanted to say that, yeah, it's cool that we can be wherever doing this as a job. But I think the coolest thing, the thing that made me cry in the jungle today was the people responding to something that you just talked about, saying that it changed their life in some way, right? You got a message from someone about suppositories who was going through chemotherapy and it helped with all these things. And it was a post that I did how many years ago? 5 years ago, right? And so something that I did 5 years ago had an impact on someone's life and could have an impact on someone's life today, and that's the part I think is so crazy. I just saw another one here when I popped on YouTube, about this woman. And I'm just like, holy shit. I don't know if we can cuss. Can we cuss on? Yeah.
I think we can. I think we're good.
Okay. But holy shit, that's like, that stuff is so beautiful. That's the most beautiful part.
Okay, well then let's talk about suppositories because that was actually one of the questions. And we love suppositories at the Cannabis Coaching Institute. We like even give out a certificate to, it's a fake certificate to students who say suppository first on one of our calls because it has been so impactful for so many women. And I'm going to say like 3 years ago, I could not imagine saying the word suppository on a YouTube live. And now I'm like, you should know, and you should know, like everyone needs to know this.
Yeah.
Top 3 reasons why you would recommend a suppository to somebody.
Oh, which way are we using it? What way are we using it? Any of the
Either.
way. Okay. Well, I think, geez, I would say the biggest one for me, the one that I hear most about, the one that people write about is sexual pain. I mean, that's the number one thing that people write, talking about how it's changed their lives and like saved relationships and helped women, rediscover themselves or discover themselves for the first time sexually without pain. And that to me, because I'm on this like pain kick probably right now, is the biggest benefit to those, the number one use that I can think of with those. Kind of blocked for another one because that's all I can think about. What about you?
I think that a lot of people use them for things like menstrual pain. That's the condition that I see most people coming to cannabis suppositories for. They're like, can this help? And it can, because oftentimes with suppositories, you can take more THC in suppository format than you could in any other way without feeling the intoxication. And so lots of women come to it for that reason, because they need more THC to help with their cramping, for example, but we can't walk around being really elevated all day long. So a lot of women come to it for that. And then they find out that it also helps with sex. Then they because it's a suppository and it does actually kind of work like a lube. Then people are like, oh, and then they find out that it's great for that. So yeah.
Kind of works like a lube. Wait a second.
Okay, no, like, yeah.
It's lube plus. It's a lube
plus.
you can get into the other places, the other realms. Like weed lube is great, but it gets someone, one general zone. There's so much more.
You're like, just put weed everywhere, people. Do it.
About today. And yes, put it everywhere. Can you talk about the other place people can put suppositories?
Yeah, one time I think I was on a live and I talked a lot about using suppositories anally, and I didn't realize you were supposed to say rectally instead. So yeah, you can use them, and they're often used rectally as well. And again, most of the time that you're using suppositories is because you're trying to get localized relief. So if you have bowel issues, gastrointestinal issues, etc., suppositories can be really great for that. So they're either using it because they want pain relief right there, or they're using it because they want to have more THC without taking it in a different way. But yeah, they have been so impactful for so many people.
Can you get high? Can you get high from suppositories?
Oh God, I hate this question. So I used to be so black and white on these things. So in general, you could take more THC in this way without feeling intoxication. But yeah, absolutely. If you have enough THC in your suppository, it can enter your bloodstream and then make you feel intoxicated, which is why, just like with every THC product you try, you should start with a quarter of the suppository and see how you feel. But in general, it's a way to avoid the intense intoxication. So,
or you can take the full thing and be ready for your day to go in a different direction. Maybe if you have time for a wee bit of a ride, go ahead and take it. Yeah. What was your response to that before when you were saying I was so black and white? Were you like, no, it couldn't possibly ever get you intoxicated?
Maybe no, it couldn't ever, but just this happens a lot with the research that we have on science versus what happens in the real world. Sorry, the research that we have on cannabis science versus what happens in the real world, because we are still in a place where we don't have multitudes of studies on humans. And so we'll have 1 or 2 studies that show something. For example, suppositories aren't likely to make you high, but that's done, on a certain type of people with a certain dose. And then I'll be teaching a lesson at the Cannabis Coaching Institute, and people will be like, oh no, I have totally been high on suppositories. Or the one that really gets me is like when people tell me they've felt intoxication from topicals. So I refuse to be black and white on that one anymore.
Yeah, I know. We need to know more. And I've had that experience. I've definitely felt elevated, not insanely, especially for how many milligrams of THC were in my suppository. But yeah, I think,
Okay. Let's do one more question that we got, which was, should everybody be taking CBD every day? And this is from Olivia. Thanks, Olivia. This is another question that I would have been pretty firm in my belief that, like, yeah, everybody should be taking CBD every day. Like, you get CBD, you get CBD, you get CBD. And I've been talking with all of these healthcare professionals. I just was on the phone with that cannabis nurse that I was telling you about. And I'm like, she does all the things that she's supposed to do to nourish her endocannabinoid system. She meditates, she exercises, she's eating well, she's drinking lots of water, etc. She's doing all the things. And she says that when she started taking CBD, because she was learning about it, that she didn't really feel a difference. And she thinks that's because her ECS is already like humming at a good rate. And I've talked to other people with a healthcare background who have said a similar thing, that it's not that everybody should be taking it, but that try it out and see if it does provide an improvement for you, but like not for everybody, not all the time. So what's your thoughts on that? Should everybody be taking it?
no. I was like you. I did. Do you remember when I learned how to make CBD oil when we could first get CBD flower in 2019? I remember making my first batch of chocolates and being like, I think I told you, I was like, I'm gonna drive around and just give everybody a chocolate. Like Mother Teresa of CBD chocolates right now, just like you get that in a hug and just like everyone needs it, you know? I do have a similar response now. And I was just talking to someone about this, and they said that, when they first got on CBD, it was really helpful. It was calming their anxiety. And then after several years of almost daily use, they started feeling like kind of that same, like if you've been on antidepressants for a long time, where you're just kind of like, and maybe you can't get as like excited, or he mentioned something about like not being able to be as motivated for work and those kinds of things. So I think that it was an interesting insight, because it was like you wanted to be less like, and then you got to that point and then you're like, I don't know about all this stuff. So I think it's a balance. It depends on what you want. Is it effective for certain types of things? For sure. Like there's no doubt in my mind that there are so many things that CBD can be good for, especially if, like you said, you're in dysfunction. If you're having an issue that we know that we have some research on, and even if you don't, like you said, if you've got something going on, it's not harmful to try it, even for longer periods of time, as we're finding out, but it might not be super beneficial. So I think use it when you need it, like any other kind of medicine. I feel this way about supplements too. Like taking supplements all the time, that feels like something we would never do in nature. You'd be doing that. Those seasons would change, stuff would come in and out. You would have like your favorite amazing stuff that makes you feel amazing in one season. And so if we're kind of replicating that, like how often would you really be consuming decarboxylated CBD out in the wild if you were, a critter, a human critter, not in the current state. But I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about it. Take it when you need it. You don't have to take it all the time every day. But when you're first starting, I think giving it a shot of like a month, just like giving it a try, being consistent about it and seeing how it feels. Again, while keeping in mind that it's not like, it's not a magic bullet, right? Like that part too, is that I think a lot of people wait until like they're at a crux point with their health in some ways. You're feeling really, really anxious, or you're having a lot of information for years and years, or whatever it might be. And then they're like, I want it to work instantly. Like some of these other drugs we talked about, like opiates, like you said, feel like you live in a cloud instantly. It only takes a little bit of time. Even THC, like we talked about, you can experience in transformation fairly quickly. Even with a full spectrum CBD product, you might not. It might take you a few hours. It might take a few days. It could take a few weeks, depending on where your system is. We could talk about why that is, like, scientifically, physically, but I think from a practical standpoint, it's really about feeling yourself and tracking things as you go.
It is actually so multi-layered when people are going to come to CBD for the first time, because if you're feeling good and you take it for a month, you might not feel any better. But if you're feeling poorly and you're feeling really poorly, like you said, like you are, like you're at your rock bottom and you're like, okay, I'm going to finally try the evil devil's lettuce or whatever, then you need a high enough dose at a long enough time to be able to bring you out of that state of inflammation, for example. And yeah, well, I guess this is why people hire cannabis coaches, is because
I'm like, we know the physiological reason why that is. And so you can kind of like see where someone's at and be able to give more personalized guidance around that. But then there are the people too, I'm kind of jumping back, but you were talking about the people who are healthy, who use it, maybe they don't feel anything, but there are people who swear by it, who are performance athletes and, who are doing things and like in this place of growth, like, yeah, if you're just trying to maintain homeostasis, but if you're like getting after it and you're training, right? I swim, people who are lifting weights talk about this all the time. Like CBD can be really, really helpful for recovery and, for a whole host of different things when you're also trying to be more healthy.
Yeah, for sure. This is probably the coolest thing about CBD. And we haven't even touched on CBDA, which is like non-decarboxylated cannabis, which you may, like that ancestrally, we would have spent more time consuming CBDA and all the benefits that are there. So that's for another live though, CT.
Yeah. It's the whole thing, that whole thing is for another life. Thinking about like, monkeys running around chewing on, cannabis and what the properties of that cannabis was. And yeah, that's a totally different Q and A. Let's get out of here before we start talking about it.
All right, let's get out of here. Thanks so much for joining us live. We appreciated you being here with us, and we will see you again really soon. Anything you want to say on the way out, CT?
Bye. Join us.
Bye.
Free class. Yeah, go get that free class.
Yeah, check it out. Join us. Yeah, or Cold Canada. We'll see where they come.